All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about something we all struggle with: how to learn something new and actually, make it stick. We'll walk through a really powerful method for getting to true understanding, and then we'll see how to supercharge it with AI, turning any complicated topic into knowledge that actually lasts. You know this feeling, right? You read something important, a chapter in a book, maybe a big article for work, and in that moment, it all makes total sense. You get it. But fast forward a couple of days, and if someone asks you about it, poof, it's just gone. It honestly feels like you're pouring water into a bucket with a giant hole in it. So here's the most important thing I want you to hear. The problem isn't you. It's not your memory, and you're not bad at learning. It's all about the strategy. Most of us, well, we were taught to learn in a way that's just not built for the long haul. But the good news? That's something we can totally fix, starting right now. So let's put a name to this problem. Psychologists have a term for it: the illusion of knowing. It's that sneaky, kind of treacherous feeling of understanding you get when you're just passively taking things in. When we just read or listen, our brain recognizes the words, sure, but it doesn't do the hard work of building those deep, sticky connections that equal real knowledge. And this, right here, this is the whole game. On the left, you've got passive input: reading, watching videos, listening to lectures. This is where almost all of us spend our time, mostly because, hey, it's easy. But the real magic, the stuff that actually works, is over on the right: active output. When you force your brain to explain something, to test itself, to apply what you've learned, it has to actively build the knowledge. It's the difference between watching the game and actually being on the field. Let me give you an analogy. Think of the part of your brain that handles new ideas, your prefrontal cortex, as this tiny little 4-ounce bowl. Now, what do you think happens if you try to dump a gallon of information into it? Yeah, it just overflows everywhere. Cramming information isn't just inefficient, it's exhausting for your brain. It's a trap with like a 99.9% failure rate. So, how do we fix this? What's the move? We need a really big shift in how we think about learning, moving from just naming things to truly knowing them. And for that, we're going to turn to the one and only Richard Feynman, a physicist who is an absolute master at making crazy complex things seem simple. Feynman loved to tell this story about his dad. They'd be walking in the woods, and his dad would point to a bird and say, "See that bird? You can learn its name in Italian, Portuguese, and Chinese. But when you're all done, you'll know a lot about humans and what they call things, but you'll know absolutely nothing about the bird itself." He taught him that knowing the name of something isn't the same as knowing something. And that story just nails the core idea, doesn't it? True understanding isn't about memorizing fancy jargon or complicated definitions. It's about being able to boil a concept down to its absolute essence and explain it in your own simple words. As Feynman put it, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Okay, so theory is great, but let's get practical. How do we actually do this? Well, we can use a super simple but incredibly powerful system. Think of it as an active learning cycle that forces your brain to go deep instead of just skimming the surface. The cycle is beautiful because it's so simple. First, you pick one idea and try to write down an explanation like you're talking to a 10-year-old. No jargon. Second, you test and teach. You literally say it out loud. Now, this is where the magic happens, because you're going to get stuck. You'll stumble. And those stumbles, they're not failures. That's step 3. You've just identified the gaps in your knowledge. So you go back to the book or the article to fill in only those gaps. Finally, you try again, refining your story until it's smooth and clear. Now, the science that makes this whole thing work is something called active recall. It's simply the act of pulling information out of your brain instead of just passively putting it in. Every single time you force yourself to retrieve a memory, you're strengthening the neural pathway to it. It's literally like doing a bicep curl for your brain. The effort of the recall is what builds the muscle. And check this out. There's hard data to prove it. In a major study, researchers found that students who read a text just once and then were tested on it remembered way more in the long run than students who just reread the text 4 times. That's called the testing effect. Rereading feels productive, but active recall is what actually builds a memory that lasts. So please, get this into your head. When you try to explain something and you get stuck or you mess up the logic, that's not a failure. That is a gift. That moment of struggle is like a big, flashing neon sign pointing you directly to the weak spots in your understanding. The mistake isn't the problem. It's the map showing you exactly where you need to go next. Now, this whole active learning cycle is a powerhouse, but it does take discipline.
In the past, you had to do it all yourself. Today, though, we have an absolute game changer that can act as our own personal, tireless tutor to speed the whole thing up: AI. And it can all start with a single prompt. Instead of just asking an AI for information, you ask it to become your learning partner. This one prompt right here is like a magic wand. It transforms the AI from a simple search engine into a full-blown active learning coach. Let's just break down why this is so powerful. You're asking it to explain simply. That's step one of our cycle. You're asking it to quiz you. Boom, that's active recall. By asking for common mistakes, you're finding the gaps before you even fall into them. And the practice problem? That's applying your knowledge. You're basically telling the AI to run the entire Feynman technique for you. So here's the number one rule. You have to use AI as a coach, not as a crutch. A crutch is when you just say, give me the answer, and you copy it down. A coach is when you say, test my understanding, challenge me. The goal isn't just to get the information from the AI. It's to build the knowledge inside your own head. Okay, so you've used this method, you've actively learned a concept. Awesome. But how do you make sure it's not gone in a week? The final piece of the puzzle is consolidation. That's the process where your brain takes what you've learned and locks it in for the long term. We've already talked a lot about retrieval practice, which is just that fancy term for testing yourself. But there are two other big ones. First is spaced repetition, the super simple idea of reviewing material at longer and longer intervals. It's like telling your brain, hey, this is important, don't you dare forget it. The second is using analogies and concept maps, linking new ideas to stuff you already get, which builds stronger connections in your mind. And maybe the most overlooked learning tool of all is rest. Seriously. Learning isn't just about focus. It's about focus and then consolidation. Your brain works best in these 90-minute bursts, and then it needs a 20-minute break. Get this. Even just pausing for 10 seconds after a tough concept allows your brain to replay what you just learned at 20 times the speed. And of course, a good night's sleep is when your brain does its most important filing and organizing. You can't just keep working. You have to let it all sink in. So there you have it. We've talked about the illusion of knowing, the power of active recall, the Feynman technique, and how to put it on steroids with AI. The only thing left to do is, well, do it. Don't try to learn everything at once. Just pick one thing, one single topic you've been wanting to really get. Run it through this process and make that knowledge truly, deeply your own. So, what's it going to be?